So Burak, how about you?
So there are different things that I would like to talk about. There is one special character for me that I think he is underappreciated. That is the Matthew the Raven. I think this is a fantastic character, not only because he is a Raven, but think of how hard it is to develop a really good character when everyone else in the story has big stories, lots of things going on, and you are one of the only few non-human characters that is being witnessing everything that is happening. Like, I think this is a fantastic career. I also loved it when I first read the comics. So, I know that there are so many great characters, but I'm gonna go with Matthew the Raven.
There you go. I got to tell you, when I read Matthew, when I see Matthew, I could just go back to American Gods and Mr. Friday and the wisdom and memory. Exactly. And exactly. I couldn't help but experience Matthew in that light. And it was kind of interesting the way the kind of character voice they gave him, somewhat of a repentant soul, right? I mean, he obviously lived a life that he didn't have a whole lot of respect for in the end, and running around helping dreams. So, yeah. Anyone else on Matthew the Raven?
I think you were the first person who actually talked about him in this way, because most of the time I see people kind of ignore him or don't really talk about Matthew the Raven that much. So it was very fresh to see you talk about this.
That's fantastic. So look,
definitely,
my favorite scene, my favorite episode is episode 5, 24/7. My favorite character is Dr. Destiny, the son. The actors David Thewlis just carried the whole episode, and everybody in that episode got so much psychic energy off of his character as it just played out slowly and horribly, scene after scene after scene. And he appeared to be fragile, and he was not fragile in any way whatsoever. And to be that kind of character who had been locked up, let's assume that you've actually had this power, this ruby that allows you to make dreams come true. I mean, we've seen other riffs on this idea that I have this power, therefore I'm going to make a perfect world. Think of Death Note, think of these stories where people say, I'm going to make a perfect world. How? Oh, I'm going to kill all the bad people, right? I mean, or I'm going to make their dreams come true. And, we didn't really talk. Well, I would like to talk about if that's really what it means for your dreams to come true, right? I mean, in other words, a character like him looks at us and he thinks, well, now they're telling the truth. Now they're telling you what they really want. And it implies that we're pretending all of the time. And what I get concerned about with that kind of language is, but I do want those type of relationships in my life. I don't want to murder everyone. I don't want to have sex with everyone that I see. All right. There may be impulses, but those aren't things, because I have more cognitive aspects to what I am. What I ultimately want becomes very complicated, not base, not simple. So I don't know. I love the way he did that. And I love the way Dream sort of dealt with him when he finally met up with him. But for me, it was the acting in 1 hour, seeing these people go to this base level. What were your reactions to that episode?
I was spellbound.
Yeah.
It was just it was twist after twist, and it unfolded with each and every minute. It was beautiful. So that's why I was conflicted between, should I choose episode 5, should I choose episode 6? Because episode 5 was amazing. It was so amazing. And
what was the verb you used? You were what?
Oh, I was using spellbound. It's spellbound, I was mesmerized.
Yes, which is more not a verb, but no, that's it. You just can't stop watching. Usually I can look away from a program. And what's so fascinating, it was that guy's psychic heft. that character just kept you riveted, calm, cool, watching them fall apart. I mean, it was just brilliant acting. And in the comic, he has kind of a distorted, ghoulish face. I'm glad they just took a straight up actor who looked like he hadn't bathed in a long time, and they put him out on the street, and he did what he did. I just thought it was stunning. Anybody else? Go ahead.
The way that I read this in the show itself was, this is the exact opposite of what a good therapist should do. That they will rip the truth out of you like some maniacal dentist from Little Shop of Horrors. That they will kind of carve away the lies that we tell ourselves and force you to see the banal natures. I mean, he has very base versions of the endless in this. The desire component, everyone cheats on everyone. The destruction, the prodigal son, everyone breaks everybody down. He seeks his destiny and conjures the fates without any and also he's a polar opposite. He's a foil to Dream himself. Dream allows people to see what they need to see. He does not shock them with this more than they can handle. That is the respect that he has for his position, like a good therapist should do. All minds deserve a good therapist here. And so in the end, when even you have this all-powerful, manipulative, maniacal character trying to usurp the power of Dream, the kind of magnanimous character that is Dream does not need to resist, just as we do not need to confront or even combat those in our society that would try to use the truth against us, whether it is a genuine truth, whether it is their truth, whether it is their gross manipulation of the ruby of our truths that we may experience in very unpolite discourse in any type of online threads. But if you don't entertain it, if you let them get their anger out, you take their power from them. And that is a fantastic last lesson, that you don't need to crush your enemies. You can just remind yourself how small they are and how big you are in comparison.
Just to continue that idea, the idea that you will react to Twitter by answering negativity. No, you don't react to negativity. What you do is put your world out there. And because once you end up reacting, you're kind of over, you go ahead.
But Neil Gaiman responds. If you ever look at Neil Gaiman's discussions on Twitter, his is a masterclass, not beyond his actual masterclass that he does. But whenever anyone was discussing about the pronunciation of Calliope for the last final episode for now, hopefully, somebody was arguing, oh, that's not the pronunciation. It's like, are you trying to argue that the Greek actress who's pronouncing the Greek goddess's name is saying it wrong? That's it. That's all he had to do.
No, fair enough. He was pretty reactive. I was a little surprised, not in a good, bad way. Just to be honest, I almost felt like he was acting like Dream, protecting the realm, right? I mean, he was making sure that the haters weren't going to run the Dream world, right? Because there is a community about this. And I was a little surprised to see him just go straight out, but he did. And no one's going to gatekeep was one of the phrases. I remember him. No one's going to gatekeep who gets to play what. And good for him. Absolutely. So we've all talked about our favorite character, favorite scene or whatever. Anything else you guys want to say about the Sandman?
I think I was hoping someone would mention Corinthian a bit. Because he was such a fun character to witness. I was terrified. At the same time, I was having so fun to see him in the television, see him in the Netflix series and stuff. So it was so fun to watch him. And I was talking about Neil Gaiman being reactive on Twitter. I follow him, and I rigorously check up on his tweets and stuff. So when about Corinthian, there was so many debates on Corinthian. Why is Corinthian portrayed as a as not straight, why he was portrayed as a gay, and like why he's portrayed as like a homosexual person. So Neil Gaiman was like, he has always been like this. So it's like, if you have read the comic, you would have noticed it. Maybe I didn't say it like that, but you would have noticed that Corinthian has always been like this. So it was really so I think, and the actor who played Corinthian, I think he did a tremendous job on it. So yeah, I just wanted to mention him.
Well, Gaiman creates a story, and then people start challenging him on the story. I mean, that's like challenging Dream about dreams, right? I mean, you can't. It's his realm. So I'm sure he's just reveling in the ability to tell people they're wrong about something that's imagined, right? I mean, that's just fantastic. And I got to say, the next con I go to, I'm definitely going to cosplay the Corinthian.
Wow.
That I'll do an older Corinthian, right? But nonetheless, the one who survived Dream. I
Or
did
the next one.
Or the next. You're right. You know, exactly. Well said. Exactly. I love the conversation between Dream and the Corinthian in the final bit where you know Neil's kind of, or excuse me, Neil. You're right. Where
That's a Freudian slip if I ever heard one.
Dream is trying to tell Corinthian, I created you to teach them things about themselves, not for you to consume them. And then you try, that makes you think, how can a nightmare teach you something about yourself? That's a huge public service. Just to have people sit there for a second and say, how the hell can a nightmare teach me something about myself? Those little moments are what Gaiman's after. Those little cognitive moments in us where a little bit of emotion opens up a crack in our way of thinking, and just superbly acted, superbly executed. And I got to figure out if I can buy some cosplay teeth eyes, or if I got to draw them onto my eyelids or something.
Or just get the glasses and wear them around the whole time.
Yeah, well, that too. And I loved how he was walking around with Rose and her brother, and all his arguments about Dream were true. He's going to kill you. He's not looking to help you. And he was right, because Dream was going to kill her until, right, until he found out who the Vortex was actually supposed to be, and that all played out. So I'm a big fan of the Corinthian, I have to admit.
If I may,
please.
The aspect about what can we learn from nightmares is actually very relevant. Nightmares are more commonly the most remembered of our dreams. They're showing us something that we have not yet faced. And there's theories that nightmares are threat simulations, getting us prepared for what might happen. There's very important developmental stages for the nightmares, whether it's, you know, running from a monster versus being naked in your classroom, or forgetting, you know, something back in high school and having to go back for it. But this shows us at times in our life when we're missing something, or when we need to focus, when we need to wake up and pay attention. So nightmares are very important. If Dream was just the ruler of dreams and nightmares was the enemy, that would be a half-truth. And so reality and dreaming and waking and etc., it is important to see the good and the bad, or really to recognize that good and bad are just terms we give to things. A dream and a nightmare are equally important.
And this gives us a good insight into why Dream what some might call uptight. He is a good therapist in the sense that he's got to do things not to harm others, right? He's got to introduce things that will, from his best estimate, help them. And he's got to be very other regarding in the nightmares that he creates, right? He's just not out there to terrorize them. So he doesn't get to do what Desire does. Or does the Desire just terrify you if Desire wants you to be upset, right? Any other characters you guys wanted to discuss, or anything about the show that?
I think another honorable mention is seeing John Constantine as Joanna Constantine.
Yeah.
I think that was a nice touch. That was one of the characters that I was curious about. Not only I like John Constantine as a character, like Keanu Reeves played that character successfully. There was a British series that didn't end well, I believe, in terms of production success, but that was still decent. And then I already like the actress from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So that was another nice touch for me. Seeing her act as Joanna Constantine and doing the exorcism stuff in a cool way in the world of immortals and demons, I think she deserves some appreciation as well.
No, that's fantastic. One of the things that I wanted to talk about Dream was this bizarre contradiction of asexual sexuality. In other words, Dream, there were moments when he presented as fairly asexual, yet there are times when he was just drop dead sexy. And, then we find out that he actually, had a kid. And so we know that he's a sexual being, but I guarantee they talked about how to act that, how to look seductive, but not look sexually interested. And there was a tension he created all the time, the way he was with people, that even the scene with Desire was, I'm not going to say it was sexual. What I'm saying is that it was this tension of sexual asexuality that I thought they must have worked very hard to achieve. Does that ring a bell with anyone else, or is that just me? You can say it's just me.
I have seen in Twitter, people are talking about that. Dream is a character that you can ship with everyone. Like even ship, like even with Death, even with Destiny, and even with Hob, with Joanna Constantine, or even with Corinthian, you can ship him with everyone. So I think I don't know if it's the Tom Sturridge or it's Gaiman, director told him to be like that, but it is what I felt actually.
Well, there you go. So I'm not alone in that. And I like the idea of ultimately shippable, right? The omniship. Yeah. That's a vibe I got. And you're right. I mean, the scene where he declared himself to be a friend, right, with Hobbs. I'm not going to say there was sexual tension there. What I'm going to say is there was some tension there, or at least it was acted in a way that at least felt to me like there was an attraction that wasn't just necessarily platonic. But this also gets to what Ian was talking about with Desire. It doesn't have to be like we know what it is. Right? It's just there, and then we struggle to put words on it. And then when you get a good writer and a good actor, you can just put it in front of everybody and they can see it. And we sit around trying to talk about it, but the words can never be as real as, everything that they're trying to describe. So, yeah, that was a very cool part about how they played that role.
Similarly, the way that Tom Sturridge presents the kind of measured conflict with his own desire throughout the story, as Dream does throughout the books, graphic novels. Dream is very serious. It takes his job very seriously. This is serious business. I'm doing this to take care of these humans. I have a job and I'll do it. Very British. Keep a stiff upper lip. You do what you have to do.
Yes.
And then there is still Desire. And throughout the comics, from the very beginning, when we see, as he's passing through hell and he sees Nala, and you'll see the first of many times, I hope, that he will reveal that he does change his appearance for every person who sees him. And so with this character, he is Kaikul, and he reveals how important this character was for him. So much so that he threw her into hell and still feels so badly, loves her so strongly. The desire and the despair are very obvious there.
Yeah.
Dream is also influenced by his siblings. Yeah. And Calliope he had his relationship with, and knock on wood, hopefully we'll get all the way to Omnibus, and we'll get to see Dream at the beginning of the universe when he falls in love with a new proto-intelligence, star stuff, etc. And how does his relationships change? And this was the beginning of the game of Desire and Dream. And from our earliest understanding of dreams, it is how is it a reflection of our desire? This strange kind of battle between, oh, I want this, but I shouldn't have this. And that's how Tom does a fantastic job of portraying.
No, it's fantastic. Yeah, that sounds great. Anyone else?
Well, I have a question. It's a question.
Oh, I love a question. Cool. I love it.
I would like Burak to explain it, or share your thoughts on it. So how did you like the serial killer convention? So does it like go with your dark triad thing, or like how do you explain it, or what's your thought on it?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great point. I was thinking about touching base on that. Like that was a scene. Like that was a scene to be as a dark personality scientist to sit and observe for hours and hours. I like how there's different aberrant personalities were displayed throughout the show, not only in the convention. Like the convention was specifically focused on that. So that was like pure sadism and psychopathy coming together, and they are trying to demonstrate who is the most badass among them. And they even had a guest of honor, Quarantine being the most psychopathic being in the room. That was quite a scene. But besides that, I really like how they portrayed desire as one of the most manipulative, genuine way. And if you think about the nature of those aberrant personality traits, one of the things like that is known as the core of the dark triad is how they lack remorse and they are careless. So if you think it that way, desire has not emotion thinking like, okay, I shouldn't have done that, I am sorry. No, they are going to stick on their plan because they know that is the right thing to do based on their nature. This is what I really like about them. Like, coming from a more scientific point, there are certain dispositions that you can measure easily. Narcissism is taught one of those. So if you ask a real narcissist if you are a narcissist or not, they are going to say, yes, I am going to proudly say that I am a narcissist, because that is a part of their identity. There is nothing to be ashamed of. This is not something that they need to desire. They know who they are. And if they are in an environment that they can express themselves, and in the convention, if you are all together with other people that there are no social contracts, no norms, nothing that regulates your behavior, this is the best place to be yourself. And that's episode was really good at reflecting that. But yeah, I appreciate the question. I think that was a wonderful one.
One thing I love about how that episode was written, I've been paying a lot of attention to what I call dissonance to virtue processing. In other words, oppressors who oppress people violently. Usually, I would argue, our experience, the trauma they cause the other does generate dissonance in most people, right? And the way that they organize themselves to prevent experiencing the trauma of the other is to develop a rhetoric of virtue. So what I'm doing is virtuous. So what I loved about the conversation is all of them had these stories about how they were helping the human species, right? They were virtuous. And I love the part where the one religious guy was saying, I am the hammer of God. And this other guy says, hey, I don't want to be associated with this guy. I'm just doing God's will. I'm not, but they common to both was this hyperbolic version of virtue. And what I love about Dream is saying, okay, you're going to see the suffering now. And the idea, and I like the way he said, I'm taking away your dreams. When the way I would say it is, we're taking away your cognitive borders that allow you to inhibit the processing of the trauma of the oppressed, right? So even though it looked funny what they're doing, there are phrases that come out in our culture. All lives matter, right? All lives matter is a direct attempt to make oneself feel virtuous by reacting to the dissonance caused by Black Lives Matter. For some people, that phrase causes dissonance. And so in order to not feel that dissonance, they create a state of virtue. All lives matter. It instantly denies the value of Black Lives Matter, or negates what it means, while simultaneously imposing, piling up virtue on the self. And it's almost like Shakespeare's, methinks she doth protest too much, right? The louder the hyperbole, the more obvious it is that there's dissonance they're covering up. And for a dream to come in and just take it all away at the end, and then them to go to their cars and cry or commit suicide, stunning, just stunning. And it was put into motion so well in that episode. I mean, I read it in the comic and it mattered, but I have to admit it didn't have the same impact as just watching it happen with people saying those things. So
they acted finally seeing remorse so well. Each of those characters, you could see it in their eyes, in their experiences, the way that they shakily held their phone and says to the police, hello, I'd like to report a murder. And who doesn't want to just somehow finally get this person who seems to not care at all about the harm that they cause to finally just get it that they're hurting people.
Right.
Oh man, if only we could actually do that. But narcissists are a psychologist's enemy, that they cannot accept that there's any fault in that.
Right.
So thankfully Dream is there with his abilities and powers to actually turn that around. I wonder if Burak, if there is any research that shows of a way to somehow get the narcissist to finally see the error of their ways. For the most part, in therapy, all we can do is just work with the children of narcissists or the partners of narcissists to get them to establish their boundaries and strengthen themselves.
So it is not that just, I would say, educating them about their beings and how they should behave, but it's more like there is that power hierarchy that influences the way that they behave. So if they see themselves as superior, they are going to act as more dominant, more assertive ways, because they know that they are the boss, until they see a bigger narcissist. Then the story changes completely. This is one of the things that I have seen in the literature. Like, once their inflated egos are boomed just because there was someone who was better looking, who was more successful, who had much power, this is the time they felt like, okay, that hurt my fragile ego, and now I am going to get even more aggressive because you took the only thing that mattered the most to me. Just like Dream took away what those highly psychopaths had, that is their defining character. The same applies to, I believe, all aberrant personality traits.
And then what the successful aberrant personality does is change the world in the ways that reinforce their aberrantness. So, for example, sociopathic corporate America is an embodiment of narcissism. And it's not an embodiment, it's they create, just like ants go out and create pheromone gradients so they can cooperate. People, narcissists or sociopaths with a lot of power and wealth, reorganize the landscape so that their way of being is protected. And what they do is surround themselves with people who don't challenge their morals. And they can do that and still have their power. So one of the things I try to talk about a lot these days is, let's get ideas like racism and empathy out of the head and put them in the world. And let's look at what world are we creating that prevents the wealth, the privileged from experiencing the suffering of the non-privileged, right? We don't live in this, they don't live in the same neighborhoods, right? They don't wear the same clothes, they don't work at the same places. And all of that can be seen as sort of an exterior border that manages my empathy for me, or my desire not to send it to others. So keeping track of the worlds that they create, and then looking at the world we live in, is what I'll call infrastructures of suffering, right? How does the infrastructure divide up the suffering and set it up so that the privileged don't experience the suffering of the less privileged, is part of how that all works. Part of how, well, I'll shut up. I said my bit there.
Building off that, like there is research showing that those tendencies of like all those social corporate sociopaths, all those Machiavellians, they are present in the world because it somehow is socially adaptive.
Yes.
So if it helps you hold the positions of power, set the rules,
Yes.
and take advantage of those who are less Machiavellian, less psychopath, less narcissistic,
Yeah.
then it has some adaptive value. Setting aside the moral implications and social consequences, it helps people to get ahead and set the rules in the world that we are living in.
That, yes, in a culture that allows that to be the successful moray, you're absolutely right. One of my favorite TV shows ever is Deadwood, HBO, from the early 2000s, a silver mining town out in South Dakota it's on indigenous land. There's silver mines. So it's just this huge chaotic space. And they show you what sociopathic American culture is. And it's not the close-up, it's the ruining lives from a distance. And it takes a certain person to be able to close a factory. It takes a certain person to be able to order people to be murdered so that money can be made. I mean, and if your system is based on privatization and that sort of thing, then it's easier for that type of person to move to the top, because they have the nature that allows them to generate that much suffering. All right, I'll shut up. Go ahead, please do.
So it's curious that you're bringing up this concept of sociopathy and the corporate world. I wonder, Scott, if you're familiar with the proposed diagnosis of corporate sociopathy.
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate, or shall I give the bit of the spiel that I know and you can add on?
You do yours, and what I know of is a documentary that did it. You go ahead and tell me what you know. Yeah.
I mean, maybe what I heard was from this documentary, so you can probably add on to it. But basically, what I had heard was a few years back, when the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the Psychologist's Guide to what are we considering actual disorders, was moving from the 4th version to the 5th version. And we had groups of psychologists who were studying these different things and understanding the analyses of what is and isn't disorganized and distressing and impairing, the main components that we look for in a disorder. There was, for a brief moment of time, the consideration of what would have been considered a corporate sociopathy, which supposedly would have meant someone who disregards the well-being of employees, of other individuals, of competition for the benefit of themselves and their shareholders, was the main diagnosis that they were looking at. There was more to it than that, of course, but this was the gist of it. These would be people who would lay off huge swaths of people, take away their 401ks, completely lie to the public, and they're pretty much just the worst version of how we imagine these things to be. And then, as you may notice, I'm talking about this as a hypothetical in the past tense, and it disappeared. The rumor that has gone around is that there were some in the corporate levels who understood that if this became an actual diagnosable condition, those individuals may lose the power that they've been accruing. They may not be able to shape the world to their economic benefit. So they shape the diagnostic manual to their economic benefit, and therefore this does not exist.
So to complement that, I mean, simply complement it, there's a fantastic, I believe it's a Canadian documentary. It probably came out 20 years ago. It's called The Corporation. And what they do is they give you the history of the corporation. Corporations used to actually be created by governments for certain tasks, like building a bridge or something along. So they were hired by the public to do work for the public. And of course, they've changed quite a bit since then. And so what these documentarians did was they got out the DSM, looked up the diagnostic criteria for antisocial personality disorder, reckless disregard for the welfare of others, and just gave example after example after example about how corporations actually are sociopath, are antisocial, fit the diagnosis. But what we have missed, what they try to point out is what we've missed as a culture, is that by allowing corporations to be legally individuals, but yet not having not having an individual to morally hold responsible, the only way to punish them is with money, right? So in other words, the idea is that we have let the sociopaths run the roost. To be honest, this is something I quite believe when we look at the increasing privatization of American culture, right? Where more and more services that would be provided by the public works are being provided by private entities, which aren't open to Freedom of Information Acts, which can keep as many secrets as they want, that can fire as many people as they want. So these are things that you don't see as rampant in Western European cultures, where governments have a bigger impact on legislative systems. I'm not trying to be political, I'm trying to be descriptive here, but calling corporate America sociopathic may not be seen as purely descriptive, right? So that documentary had a big impact on me, and your story increases the impact, right? We won't go into the public versus private works. We'll do that on another podcast, but yeah.
Maybe when they make a Netflix adaptation of Transmetropolitan, we can dive into that one.
There you go. Yes, we could just take anything from the daily news right now, almost, and just talk about what it reveals about what I call our sociopathic American culture. Okay, I'll stop there. All right. Any final comments on the Sandman? Fair enough. It's quite clear that we all loved it. And once they come out with season 2, we'll all come back and talk about it then. So if you guys like, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to tell the audience where they can find you on social media. You don't have to do so. It's totally up to you. And we'll start with Isaac.
Hey, everybody. So you can find me on a variety of the socials. Just look for All Mind Health. That's ALLMINDHEALTH at All Mind Health, hashtag All Mind Health. You'll find my accounts there. And also you can go to my website, not really the social media, but just www.allmindhealth.com. Though right now the practice is just in California, but I'm more than happy to chat with any other clinicians or physicians outside of California as well, like right now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us for the time on this podcast. It's been fantastic. How about you, Burak?
I don't have any public social media presence, but for those who are willing to communicate with me for professional reasons, I have a LinkedIn page. I am visible there. Just look for my first and last name, and it will be the only result that you'll see.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate your comments during the podcast. The Dark Triad had a large influence on what we talked about today. How about you, Maisha?
Well, I'm active in social media a lot, but most of my accounts are very like fangirling type accounts. So I'm kind of embarrassed about sharing them. So I'm just going to.
You can share what you want here. There's no judgy here.
So I have a art account. Like I sometimes paint. So I have an art account. It's called Wallflower Mix Art. So if you can search it, you guys can find that. Or I also have a LinkedIn account, and it's just my name, Maisha Orthy, and I also think this will be the only search answer you will find if you type my full name. So that's fantastic. About it.
We very, very much appreciate what you brought to the conversation. Thank you for being here. You can find
it was a pleasure.
Oh,
I was so happy to get invited into the Sandman podcast
very
thing.
Cool.
It's a dream come true.
Exactly. So you can find all episodes of Why Is This So Good at the Dark Loops Productions channel on YouTube. If you want to write in, tell us what we got right, tell us what we got wrong, just type it on the YouTube page here or send an email to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to answer it at some point. So there it is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs, and remember, sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams.
Bye-bye.